Underway, and our first stop is the Hood entrance for some mackerel fishing. Blocking this entrance is HMS Hood, that was deliberately sank there on the 4th of November in 1914 in order to prevent German submarines having a direct line of fire for their torpedoes into Portland Harbour. Only one bite today. If his mates are down there, they are not playing the game. So it's time to move on. Next stop, Lulworth Cove. Well, Sam, perhaps you'd like to explain to us what first drew you to the sea and how you came about running a fishing boat.
Growing up as a kid, it was always something I'd done. My dad was a scallop diver. He used to work offshore as on the oil rigs. My mum was an avid diver for her age and for the times back in the sort of 70s, late 70s. They loved the water. I was always in around scallops. I've been on a boat since I was about 4 years old, over Lulworth banks. My dad's scalloping and everything coming back to the house. Loads of scallops all over the garden. So that I was always on boats, yachts, catamarans, sailing as a kid, and I always loved fishing. I was always fishing down the pier every weekend I could, every morning, 5, 6 in the morning, knocking on my dad's door for a lift down the Pleasure Pier. And yeah, it sort of developed from there really. Growing up as a kid, I started working on a fishing boat when I was about 17, on a small boat like the one I've got. I moved back I was in Selsey Bill, I was fishing there, and I moved back to Weymouth and I worked on a boat called Mackerel for a friend of mine's father out of Weymouth, and that was quite a long job. I had that for quite a few years. Hard work, a lot of weather involved with it, but yeah, it was good. You know, that sort of I knew I wanted to be on the sea then and in fishing and doing something like that, but it got to a point where I had another boat. I went out and bought a 21-foot Versatility it was, and I lost that 3 weeks before Christmas in a storm 2009, and that was shortly before my daughter Lily was born. So then I had to think about another option really, so I joined the Navy, signed up as a sea spec, but I found out I qualified with grades enough for a diver, so I ended up doing 6.5 years as a Navy diver. Travelled over the Middle East, Scotland, Bahrain, Qatar, Dubai out in the Middle East, sort of Isles of Skye, Balmacara, Oban in Scotland. Done a lot of Baltic tours in sort of North Poland and places like that. It was yeah, a real eye opener. I knew I always wanted to be a fisherman though, and be back in the sea doing it my way. Every weekend I was home from the Navy, I was scalloping. I loved that, and I'd earn more money scalloping than I would in the Navy. So I ended up making the decision to come out and get a fishing boat, have the daughter full time, and then we went from there really. I worked on a few more boats before I eventually bought my own one. Managed to get a good contract going and bought another boat, and that was good. And I've sort of not looked back from there really. I bought the boat for 18 grand and then ended up doing a refurb on it because it was rotten. So I rebuilt the boat and it's my second year now with it running. And I do wrasse fishing now. I do a lot of work for the marine harvest, got a good contract with them. Supplied wrasse to salmon farm to eat the lice because they banned use of formaldehyde back in the 1980s. And that sort of brings me to today, apart from I did do quite a few years scallop diving. I've lost a few friends over the years fishing. Lost my best friend 2 years ago, scallop diving off Lulworth banks. Luckily we recovered him the next day and then went on from there. I've never looked back with the fishing though. The wrassing's what I do now. I like to get back into scalloping really and see how that went, but it's finding someone to dive with, it's not easy.
Nothing goes to waste. What is commercially viable is kept for market, and those crustaceans and swimfish that are under gauge are returned to the sea, along with non-commercially viable sea life that has made its way into the pots.
into that.
Wrasse are a family of marine fish, many of which are brightly coloured. The family is large and diverse, with over 600 species in 81 genera that are divided into 9 subgroups. They are typically small fish, most of them less than 20 centimetre long, although the largest, the humphead wrasse, can measure up to 2.5 metres. They may also be employed as cleaner fish to combat sea lice infections in commercial salmon farming that has been developed in Scotland as lice busters, with apparent commercial benefit and viability. A single Wrasse works for around 4 hours a day, and in that time it can inspect more than 2,000 clients, and that is why these small cleaner Wrasse are of commercial value. Making way for the Chequered fort, situated on the outer breakwater. Construction started in 1868 and it was completed by 1875. The guns were added in 1892. The fort is circular in plan and was designed by Captain E.H. Stewart of the Royal Engineers and is constructed on a 200-foot diameter ring of stone laid on the seabed. The main floor comprises of gun rooms and ports for 14 heavy guns. The roof was originally designed to support 2 iron turrets for 2 guns each, but these were not installed. Below the gun floor are the shell and cartridge stores and engine rooms. The fort has its own harbour and auxiliary barrack buildings. In 1892, 7 12.5-inch rifled muzzle loading cannons were installed. These were replaced in 1907 by 2 6-inch breech loading guns and 2 12-pounder quick firing guns. During the First World War it was armed with 2 6-inch breech loading Mark 7 guns in addition to the 12-pounder guns, and coast artillery searchlights were added to the fort. In 1940 to 41 the fort was recommissioned and operated as an examination battery. It was then reduced to care and maintenance by February 1945. The fort was abandoned in 1956. The last job of the day before securing the Buster Ben alongside is to transfer the wrasse from the oxygenated saltwater container into a keep pot. As the fish are collected for transportation to Scotland only once a week, and they can live quite happily in the keep pot that is constantly flushed through by tidal waters. The shellfish are sold to retailers on the day of catch. Today's catch was 104 wrasse, 6 lobsters, 1 edible crab. Anything you want to say to the world to be on YouTube eventually?
Eat more fish.
That ain't happening for me.
Eat more locally sourced fish. Start putting some money back into the fishing in the country.
The fishing industry.
The fishing industry in
Talk
general.
about me and
The decline of the fishing industry in the 1980s was massive. We lost half the fleet of fishing. We were sold out during the EU transition, and now foreign countries such as Belgium and the Dutch have more of a quota. I think two Dutch boats, so more of a quota than the whole of our country. I think, so yeah, we need to start re-establishing our own fishery, our own home source produce, selling on the quay again, and that, I reckon that'll be the way forward for the UK for fishing.